Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're jumping straight into something I think we can all relate to. We're going to decode those everyday, kind of quirky behaviors we all have, and let's be honest, the ones we sometimes judge ourselves for. Our goal with this explainer is to look right past the surface level and reveal the highly evolved, really brilliant psychological coping mechanisms hiding just underneath.
I want you to think about your own habits for a second. What is your brain actually doing when you just stay completely quiet in a meeting? Or you obsessively scrub your kitchen the second you get stressed, or you find yourself subtly sabotaging your own success. On the outside, it's super easy to write these off as just personality flaws. But on the inside, there are incredibly complex adaptations happening just to keep you safe. And honestly, these hidden mechanisms are often the exact reason why we can sometimes feel completely empty, even when life is technically going really, really well.
To unpack all of this, we're going to use a sort of map of the subconscious, navigating our way through 5 key areas. First, the need for control. Second, the armor of silence. Third, the identity trap. Fourth, the shift to internal worth. And finally, number 5, AI and adaptive intelligence.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1, the need for control, managing uncertainty in a messy world. We're going to look at how things like breaking the rules or obsessing over tiny details are actually your brain's frantic attempts to create stability.
For example, when you see someone constantly bucking the rules, it's really easy to just label them a rebel. Or if someone instantly jumps in to micromanage everyone else's problems, or constantly stress cleans the house, we call them a meddler or a neat freak. But look at what the brain is actually doing here. It's trying to restore a lost sense of internal control. For the rule breaker, any imposed structure feels like a massive loss of autonomy. For the cleaner, organizing physical clutter is a way to dial down mental overstimulation. Their brain is basically saying, hey, if I can just control this room, I can control my reality.
And this really exposes the hidden cost and the painful burnout of being a fixer. See, fixers learned really early on how to turn chaos into something manageable. But the catch? Their self-worth becomes entirely tied to their productivity. Being useful is their shield. Because of that, they experience severe, almost physical discomfort when they're forced to just sit with unresolved issues. Simply being present, just sitting there and doing nothing, feels totally unbearable. They mistake action for peace, which means true stillness is actually terrifying for them. It's a huge reason why kicking back when life is good can suddenly feel incredibly empty.
Moving right along to Section 2, the armor of silence, self-protection, and deep threat scanning. We're going to completely reframe the idea of quietness and why refusing to ask for help is actually a profound survival strategy.
So, the crucial thing to understand here is that overthinking every little conversation isn't just basic anxiety. It's a highly active mind trying its hardest to secure closure and avoid being misunderstood. When someone goes quiet, they aren't just checked out. Their brain is running this intense, exhausting loop. First, it scans for mistakes. Did I sound weird right there? Then it searches for hidden meanings, because to an overthinker, a delayed text message is highly suspicious. Finally, it replays the whole conversation. You can't change what was said, but replaying it gives the mind a false sense of control. It's a brilliant defense mechanism, even if it totally drains your energy.
I absolutely love this quote. They don't lack independence. Their brains simply learned early on that help wasn't guaranteed. When someone is completely drowning in stress but absolutely refuses to say, I need help, it's almost never about ego. Relying on others just feels way too unpredictable. To their brain, relying only on themselves is just emotionally safer than risking the vulnerability of being let down.
Okay, let's jump into Section 3, the identity trap, the paradox of dreaming big and doing nothing. We're going to look at why the people with the absolute biggest dreams often find themselves completely paralyzed to take action.
This contrast is wild, and it explains exactly why overthinkers stall out. We usually assume they're just terrified to fail, but actually, scratch that. The reality is a fear of identity loss. Psychologists call this the arrival fallacy. They are terrified that if they actually succeed, they'll become someone entirely different. See, our brains have a very active wanting system, and staying in that wanting phase feels familiar. It feels exciting, but achieving the goal forces us into the satisfaction system. And for a lot of people, that quiet satisfaction just feels empty.
When you look at the psychology here, you realize that just talking about big dreams gives the brain this amazing dopamine hit of success, but without the terrifying reality of having to actually change. But here is the problem. That dopamine loop has diminishing returns. You end up waiting for this magical feeling of readiness. But readiness comes after you take action, not before. It turns into an addiction to the idea of unlimited potential, because putting in real, messy effort would shatter that perfect illusion.
All right, Section 4, the shift to internal worth, graduating from external validation. Let's talk about why suddenly losing interest in social media metrics is actually a massive milestone in your psychological maturity.
So, intrinsic self-worth. This is that state where your confidence literally comes from within. When someone develops this, the endless dopamine loops of social media and the constant need for external approval just lose all their power. You basically unplug from the matrix. They aren't just deleting apps. Their brain has fundamentally shifted. They are now prioritizing deep internal meaning over raw external success.
And as this chart shows, this exact same shift happens with relationships. When you start finding real fulfillment through your own autonomy, your competence, and your purpose in life, the frantic pressure to just find someone totally evaporates. It's a huge shift from obsessing over productivity and status to actually embracing presence, and it makes you incredibly selective about who gets access to your peace.
Which brings us to our final stop, Section 5, AI and Adaptive Intelligence, the ultimate pattern recognizer. Let's connect the dots between all these human quirks and the cutting-edge world of artificial intelligence. Think about childhood amnesia for a second. Most of us have zero memory of being a baby, right? Well, that's not a glitch. The infant brain is busy. It prioritizes learning core survival skills, how to walk, how to read tone of voice, building massive mental models, over storing random data like what you had for lunch on a Tuesday. From day one, our brains prioritize adapting to survive. And remarkably, that is exactly how the most advanced AI is being built today. Look at this adaptive AI learning loop. It wildly mimics the human mind. An AI built for autonomy doesn't just crunch numbers. It models the whole context first. It makes a move, treats whatever happens as direct feedback, and then adjusts its internal pattern for next time. It's learning to interpret meaning and adapt under pressure, just like we do.
And that brings us to the core takeaway of this whole explainer, perfectly summed up right here. Once you understand these patterns, you don't just see behavior, you understand the mind behind it. Whether you're fiercely avoiding rules to protect your autonomy, or you're stuck in the arrival fallacy, or you're an AI learning from a bad output, it's all the exact same thing. It is an intelligence adapting to survive.
So I want to leave you with this lingering thought to chew on. Take a look at your own life. Look at the habits you can't seem to break, or why you might feel kind of empty even when everything looks great on paper. The next time you catch yourself overthinking, or isolating, or trying to micromanage your environment, pause and ask yourself, what is your mind trying to protect? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.